We're pleased today to have joining us as FEM Inc. special guests, Gloria Feldt and Amy Litzenberger from Take the Lead. We will begin with a short round of introductions, and then we will begin to describe what each of our organizations are doing. So FEM Inc. would be delighted to have you, Gloria, start with our round of introductions.
Thank you, Rachel, and hi, everybody. It's really fun to be here, and it's a great idea to be able to have this discussion. We at Take the Lead are so excited to have done this amazing paper with you at FEM Inc. and to have a chance to talk with people about it today. So yes, I am Gloria Feldt. I am the president and co-founder of Take the Lead. Take the Lead's purpose is to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across all sectors by 2025. And we'll flesh that out a little bit as we talk. I have been an activist for women for, I'd say about 40 years or so. And when I realized that women were on a 70-year trajectory to reach parity in top leadership positions, I thought to myself, well, I'd like to live another 70 years, but the odds are not real good. So maybe I'd better do something to speed it up. And I happened to have the good fortune to meet up with Amy Litzenberger, and we decided we were just going to do something about it now. The way I got involved in women's rights and women's issues was really through the civil rights movement in the 1960s and 70s. And at some point I realized, oh, well, if there are civil rights, I guess women have them too, right? My career has involved teaching, a lot of teaching, and I currently teach women power and leadership at Arizona State University. I was the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Federation of America for 9 years after having led local Planned Parenthood affiliates for 22 years before that. So then I left to write books, and the most recent one that I wrote, which I'm going to see if I can actually show you on the screen here, is called No Excuses: 9 Ways Women Can Change How We Think About Power. I did that once and held the book upside down, so hopefully I held it right side up this time. And,
it looks perfect.
And it was my, that really got me involved in studying the issue of women's relationship with power. And I think that has everything to do with the subject of our conversation today. And I'm going to leave it there and look forward to having more conversation.
Thank you, Gloria. Amy Litzenberger, what inspired you to form Take the Lead, and could you tell us a little bit about your background?
I was an investment banker. I had a husband who stayed at home and while I was out working, and was of the generation who was inspired by Gloria Steinem and the feminists and the second wave feminists, and felt when I was in my career that women could really pretty much do whatever men could do, and a lot of my contemporaries were out doing that. In 1999, I had my second child and was at that point married to an investment banker who had a very busy career, and I ended up stopping working and taking care of our son. 10 years later, I find out that I wasn't the only one who was doing that. There were a lot of other people, and that in fact the trajectory that women were on through the 70s, 80s, 90s of increasing the penetration into leadership positions had pretty much flattened out, and that over the course of the last 10 years we have not seen the increases in women in leadership, and in fact we're pretty much stuck at 18% of leadership positions. And my reaction to finding that out was, how could this have happened? What went wrong? And I spent a year researching this. I teamed up with Gloria, found out that she had just done a whole lot of research on this, and together we figured out that the research has been done. We pretty much, it's known, it's been researched, it's been studied, it's been proven the various reasons why women are not in leadership positions. And our thinking at Take the Lead is it's now time to do something about that. And I'm sure in the course of the conversation we'll get into a lot of those reasons, but my inspiration was really to ensure that we do my part to ensure that the world has leadership parity, because I think a lot of social problems get solved when women are part of the decision-making process in a significant fashion.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And it's such an inspiration to be able to be in conversation with you today. I'm Rachel Payne, CEO and co-founder of FEM Inc. FEM Inc. is a technology and entertainment company whose mission is to promote strong, powerful, diverse female portrayals in popular entertainment. And we came to this mission after realizing that there are truly systemic barriers that prevent women and girls from advancing and occupying an equal position of leadership and power. And we wanted to understand how to explain these barriers outside of reasons such as individual ambition or personal skill. It really had to do with larger macro trends that were not explained by these individual or social factors limited to the individual. And I think one of the realizations we had is that media and entertainment are powerful forces that really shape how people perceive themselves and perceive others, and the ways in which dynamics between people are described. New social norms can be set, different ways of valuing human contribution, and also images that mainly girls and women internalize about what it means to be a woman in society, and sometimes that's a very negative portrayal. So what we'd like to do through FEM Inc. is really showcase all the positive aspects of what it means to be a woman today, and that includes in large part what it means to be a strong, powerful female leader. And what we'd like to do is showcase the diverse range of female representation and really highlight the best of who's doing a great job of showcasing female characters, real-life women, and a wide variety of women as whole people, as multidimensional human beings. And so what we've done is build a technology platform that allows us to curate the best examples of female characters across a huge variety of entertainment formats, whether it's TV shows or eventually film and documentary style. What we will do is show the world all the many ways in which women are dynamic, diverse, powerful leaders, and to make it socially acceptable to do so and to be one. So Meghana, over to you. Please tell us about you and what brought you to FEM Inc. and also your particular interest in the question of female leadership.
Well, I actually came to FEM Inc. as, from a career in academia. Basically, I studied behavioral and neuroeconomics. So what are the biological and psychological bases of how we make all sorts of decisions? So in doing this research, one of the things that I came across over and over again was the fact that our experiences shape not only sort of the information that we happen to possess, but how we're capable of seeing the world. When we think about that in the context of female leadership, a lot of that comes down to whether or not women are capable of seeing themselves as leaders and of seeing leadership as something that's even a desirable option for them. So I guess that's sort of talking about that, and talking about that specifically with Gloria and Amy is what led us to write a paper that we've entitled Leadership Fictions, where we talk about what the potential role of the media is in shaping women's perceptions of what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a leader, and how that can affect their decisions to pursue leadership over the course of their lives.
Now, while you're talking, Meghana, I will go ahead and show people the report that we're referencing so that if they'd like to find it themselves, they can. And I will also like to walk everyone through Take the Lead. So first we will start with the report, Leadership Fictions, and I will share my screen. And Meghana, if you can walk us through this report, some of the findings, and importantly, how we came to understand that the way leadership is portrayed in popular entertainment really is fiction.
So basically, some of this comes down to a lot of the facts that Amy already cited when she was talking, which is that female leadership has really stagnated. Another thing that I actually found out by working with Take the Lead is how important female leadership is for institutional efficacy. There are studies that show that companies that have more women in their boards and in their executive leadership are often more profitable, and that governments that have more women at the higher ranks of decision making are more effective governments. So this isn't just something that people should want because it's good to have equality. It's something that people should want because it's good for the world. It makes for better institutions. When it comes to entertainment, one of the things that we found was there was this fantastic study done by the Gina Davis Institute for Gender and Media, where they looked at women's occupations across primetime films and family films. And one of the things that they found was that women were chronically underrepresented in leadership fields. So in our paper, we highlighted women in management, women as business executives, and women in political leadership. In prime time, there's some underrepresentation, but it's not terrible as compared to reality. The place where it's really, really bad is in family films. In family films, not only are there fewer women than men, that's also true in reality, but there are far fewer women represented in these leadership areas than exist in actuality. Like if you look at women in political leadership, less than 5% of the political leaders shown in family films are women. That's far below what we actually see in, say, Congress, where it's closer to 20%. Actually, just hit 20% in the Senate this year. And it's basically the same in the business leadership functions. And the fact that this is happening in family films when young girls are forming their ideas about what it means to be a woman, that's something that can be really huge and have long-running effects throughout their lives.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that there's a huge lag between the way leadership is represented to the most susceptible group.
Yep.
So at the earliest ages, girls are not seeing women in the highest levels of power across most forms of popular entertainment.
Nope.
Okay. So maybe that brings us to a good segue around this magical 18% number. Gloria, would you like to comment on that?
I would love to, because what I found from the research that I did for No Excuses, from interviewing women all across the country, because I think the personal stories are important to understand how women relate to leadership themselves. And so it's not just about the research. The research typically sort of casts some blame, I would say, whereas when I speak with women, it's a kind of a different story. There's a big risk that women take by breaking cultural stereotypes. There's a big risk that they take by putting themselves forward and risking being treated very badly. What we found is that when women actually put themselves forward, say, for a leadership role, they are treated more harshly, they are judged more harshly than men who seek that same leadership role. So a woman is taking an additional risk from what a man takes when she even puts herself forward to take a leadership position, plus she's risking losing some relationships, and as we know, women are still socialized to prioritize relationships and how people feel about us. So from the research, from talking with women around the country, from frankly looking into my own heart and soul and my own experience as a leader, I found that I had been a leader on the front lines for 30 years, that it was really easy for me to do things when they were for other people. But when it came time to actually put myself forward, I was miserably deficient. I just couldn't do it. And so I had to try to figure out, why is this? And my conclusion is that one of the things that women can do to help ourselves move forward and break that 18% barrier is literally to change how we ourselves define power. Because the definition of power through the ages has been a very male hierarchical kind of definition that implies the power over, the power to make you do something. It implies that power is a finite pie. Whereas I think as women, we tend to think of it more as, oh, you know, there's no finite pie. The more there is, the more there is. And we, you know, like since quilting bees, when we helped each other make quilts, and all the different ways we've known that we had to collaborate with each other in order to get things done, we've understood that that's not really what power is, but we have not had the opportunity to use that definition. So by changing our own definition from the oppressive power over to an expansive, possibility-laden definition of the power to get things done, the power to make life better for ourselves, our kids, our family, our company, our world, then I find that women are able to say, oh yeah, give me that kind of power. I want that kind of power. And if we start there, then we can really change the paradigm. But if we don't deal with that, we're going to still be stuck at 18% in another 20 years.
Thank you, and that's both encouraging and depressing at the same time, isn't it?
Yes, it
is. So I love the concept of the power to, and how that implies both a collaborative aspect as well as almost an aspirational element. It's less about the ego, it's less about the individual and their own personal ambition, and has much more to do with vision and the opportunity to create great impact in the world. Amy, how does Take the Lead put this into practice?
We looked at the well-researched barriers to women in leadership positions and developed a program that addresses each of these issues. And essentially, there's 4 aspects to that. We have teaching programs which teach women to change their relationship to power, for instance, teach them to negotiate, to have higher aspirations, to communicate with men, sort of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, the bilingual communication. Men and women have different leadership styles. Understanding those is something that can be taught. Secondly, we have Take the Lead presents repeatedly, and study after study after study shows, and this is an aspect that FEM Inc. is addressing, women don't have role models. The lack of women in top leadership positions is self-perpetuating because there aren't a lot of women for women to look up to and say, she's a leader, I can do that. And this is true in real life, and as Meghana said, it's even worse in many cases when you get to the media and what women are exposed to in terms of role models. The third part of the program is Take the Lead Connects, where we will be connecting not only on a micro level women with other women for the purpose of finding sponsors and mentors and job opportunities, and people to fulfill functions that you need, but also on a more macro level, working with other women's organizations and other organizations just generally to leverage and accelerate the work that those various organizations are already doing. And the last aspect of it is Take the Lead.
Drives change.
Thank you. Which is essentially, at the end of the day, if we address all of these different barriers to women in leadership, some of them are fairly intractable societal issues that it's going to take a movement to change. And here we're talking about workplace structures, about stereotypes, and frankly about some things that have to be politically endorsed, whether it's childcare, requiring minimum numbers of women on boards of directors. Scandinavian countries have had great success in increasing the number of women on boards, but it's because there's laws that say they have to be on the boards. And thought leadership in terms of like our white paper, of putting the thoughts out there based on facts and on research, with the intent of changing things in our society.
So on the point of changing things, Gloria, I know you had a lot of familiarity with the way the news media represents women, and specifically female candidates. Could you give us just a super quick summary of some of your observations around how the news media in particular can be responsible for some of the challenges, let's say, that female candidates deal with when running for political office, and maybe some of the recommendations on how we can improve that situation?
Sure, I would love to do that, Rachel. And if I can just take 1 second, I would like to add one thing to
of course.
which is that one of the things we have noticed is that women ourselves in the organizations that have been researching the problems of women's leadership and the fact that we've been stuck for a while, one of the things that happens is that we keep hearing the same negative. We keep hearing the same focus on problems, on the negative, over and over and over again. And so that in itself starts to make us pretty depressed. And so I think that one of the contributions that we can make, and I think that the paper that we worked on together starts to do this, which is to shift that conversation from just talking about the problems to also talking about the solutions, because now we know what some of the solutions are, and by golly, I think we're all four of us here are determined to make them happen and to actually make that change. So to your question about how women are treated in the political realm in the media, I tell you, it's the first thing that the media always says about a woman is what she looks like. So that objectification that we see in all ages and all spheres of women in the media is like magnified. It's on steroids for women in politics. You're going to hear, well, didn't you hear about Hillary's pantsuits, her ankles, her hairdos, her, the days that she looked tired, the days that the days that her makeup was good. We heard all of those things. Whereas for a man, you would never even hear the beginning of a mention of what their physical appearance was like, with the possible exception of, we heard about Al Gore's earth tones, but then those were blamed on a woman who had advised him to wear earth tones. So, so I think that's what we're looking at. And when we call this to the media's attention, then something can be done about it. There's a program that I'm on the board of the Women's Media Center, and the Women's Media Center and the Women's Campaign Fund have together sponsored a program called Name It, Change It. And they literally observe and track media treatment of women in politics day after day after day, and then compile those statistics. And what you can do with those numbers is then you can go sit down and you can talk with executive editors, you can talk with news directors, you can talk with the presidents of the media companies, and you can start to create some change.
That's powerful. Thank you. That's a wonderful explanation. So Meghana, I understand you've got some novel ideas on how to address this issue as well from a positive standpoint, and rather than citing the somewhat discouraging statistics, maybe taking a new approach to the way in which one can celebrate women's leadership. So what's your thinking on this topic? And I will screen share while you talk.
Okay, so one of the things that we find over and over again is that when women see more examples, more role models, as Amy mentioned, of women who are leaders, the more comfortable they feel with the idea of leadership. But it goes beyond that, and I think it goes to something very powerful that Gloria touched on, which is that the way in which we think about power has historically been very masculine, but that's actually changing. Slowly but surely, that's been changing over time. as the needs of leadership have changed, as we get to a more interconnected economy, we need more skills that are traditionally feminine, traditionally ascribed to women, things that involve collaboration, that involve working and putting together a team of people with different specialties and helping them to work together as a unit for something that's greater than the sum of its parts.
I can tell you from my experience working at Google in the innovation age, these qualities are not just important, but absolutely vital. And, you know, for example, in one of my recent roles, which was helping head up global strategic alliances for Google, we had to work in a collaborative manner, cross-functionally, and think holistically about very large challenges, because we were literally envisioning what is the future scenario and how do we fit into that, and where does this ecosystem of partners and capabilities fit into that picture. And so of course, I thrive in an environment where such qualities are celebrated, and I think more and more companies, especially technology companies and companies that are based on innovation, really need to embrace this reality in order to survive and to thrive. Please continue. I didn't.
No, it's great. So actually, there's a book that I think it came out either this month or last month called The Athena Doctrine, which extends sort of a body of research in psychology where they've looked at what are the characteristics that people associate with being a leader, and how do they correspond to how we think about masculinity and femininity. And people started doing this research in the 70s, and there have been a number of studies since then. And then there's this huge new body of research that was done by John Gerzama, who's the author of a book called The Athena Doctrine that's coming out, that I think did come out this month, where he finds that over time we are more and more of the attributes that we think are important to leadership are these collaborative things, are these quote-unquote communal attributes that allow people to work together better. There's also science supporting this. So there was a paper that came out in the journal Science a couple of years ago where they looked at what are the predictors of the collective intelligence of a group. And one of the most important things for predicting the collective intelligence of a group was the social intelligence of that group, which was highly correlated with the number of women in that group.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can do in terms of changing the way leadership is portrayed in media is it's not just about showing more women, it's about showing leadership styles that are more diverse and that incorporate these more quote-unquote female characteristics, whether or not they're shown by a male or a female character.
Okay, so walk me through a practical example of this.
So one of the examples that we used in our white paper was actually we looked at two shows where there were brilliant people who were leading a team. One was House, and one was Bone.
I'm going to pull up examples while you're talking too.
So if you look at House, House is the genius who has power over. He has a brilliant team who works under him, but he is generally always leading everything. Most of the ideas originate with him, and the group acts as sort of his hands. They don't necessarily have much intellectual contribution to the work in beyond being a sounding board for House himself. So I think that's sort of the more traditional power over, if you will, model of leadership. Now, if you look at Bones, it's superficially similar in situation. You have Temperance Brennan, who is also a genius, holds 3 PhDs, is undisputedly the center and leader of the group. But in that, you have these different members of the groups who have their own skills, who have their own insights, and she allows them to do their thing and contribute, and then brings together their insights, helps to process them in order to come to a solution. So those are two very different models of leadership that are both in television, that are both to solve mysteries, but which have very different sort of leadership qualities that are emphasized.
So I'm looking at Temperance Brennan and her
I see Can.
model. Oh, really?
Now
Okay.
I see Temperance. I think there was a
Okay. So tell me about this FEM Inc. watch list and the Women Taking Charge, or Unstoppable Women watch list. What is the thinking behind this?
So we looked at a number of attributes that that are valued in leaders generally, and that tend to correlate with effective female leaders in particular. And we evaluated characters in popular television according to these attributes, and we created these watch lists by filtering on them. Some of the ones that ended up being very important were being proactive and being passionate about your job, which I think also goes to Gloria's point, which is that it's easier to be a leader when you're thinking about others or when you're thinking about a goal or a purpose than when it's leadership for its own sake. Oh, it is 12:30. So.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do now is encourage everyone to take a look at the resources that are available on Take the Lead. And again, Gloria, what's the URL for Take the Lead?
The URL for Take the Lead is taketheleadwomen.com.
And of course, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. We'd also love your feedback on the FEM Inc. platform and the way in which we are curating examples of great women who are leaders, women who are dynamic, and a diverse range of qualities that we can embrace collectively for a new model for female leadership. So thank you to everyone today. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to following your progress on Take the Lead. And we look forward to next week's show of FEM Inc. on Sylvia Global. Stay tuned.